guys ready to rev it up? Yep. Yeah. Woo! Octane. Hi, Octane. You gotta get some energy. So, everybody on your feet. I know you just got situated and settled, but I just can't have you just sitting there. We gotta get some energy. So, everybody just start bouncing on your feet. Okay. A little bounce. Feel that blood start pumping a little bit. Okay. Now run in place as fast as you can. Fast as you can. Get the feet moving. Get the feet moving. Come on. All right. Turn to the neighbor. Give him a high five. Say good job. Good job. All right. Love to see it packed in here. This is awesome. So, welcome to Brain Octane. I want you guys to know I don't take for granted that there's other places you could be on a Monday night, but the fact that you've chosen to prioritize your health, I want to congratulate you. So that's really a job well done. Just first number one, showing up. Okay, and we know here at EFC, health is a journey, and it's never-ending improvement. So we're always working towards that. Tonight's another step on that journey of just getting better and better with your health. And so I want to bless you guys tonight, hopefully with some good information. Doesn't matter if it's your first workshop with me or if it's your 50th, you'll be able to walk away with some practical tips, steps, and affecting that. So you're going to learn how to protect your brain, your memory, how to avoid the biggest brain busters, I would call them, the things that make your brain very sick, okay? And strategies to make sure that you're mentally sharper than you've ever before. So, sorry. And if you don't realize how vital a workshop like this is, this particular topic, did you guys know that one of the hottest investments that you can do today is in real estate? But I'm not talking about buying a home, okay? One of the hottest investments out there right now is the investment of buying long-term memory care nursing home facilities. Okay, and we are about to experience a literal tsunami of neurodegenerative diseases because what we have, things like Alzheimer's and dementia, because what we have is 78 million baby boomers who are all going to be retired at the same time. And 1 out of 6 of those people are going to need long-term memory care, meaning in a facility. That's not including the people who have home health and are taken care of at home. Raise your hand if you know somebody who's affected by Alzheimer's, dementia. I'm including myself in that, okay? Keep your hands raised up is if you have had to take care of those people, okay? It's tough work. Okay, it's not something that's fun. It's very stressful on your body. So this is what we're dealing with. Is so many baby boomers are going into this stage because these neurodegenerative diseases keep getting worse and worse. Okay, and what it feels like is from the perspective of this book here, The Neuroscientist Who Lost Her Mind. It was written by a neuroscientist who actually ended up with dementia from a brain tumor. And so she was in a unique position to describe what it was like and how it felt to have dementia. And so I'm going to read this to you. It's really small. So I'm going to read this. There were times when her brain was at the nadir of functioning, that Lipska could barely make dinner. She insisted on it anyway because she'd always been proud of her cooking. But in the summer of 2015, nothing made any sense. She couldn't recall the proper proportions, and she was convinced her family was hiding pots and cooking spoons. She served strange meals in rages, and she and her husband sat and ate no matter how it tasted. Gorski told me that he missed her terribly, even as she sat across from him. She became impatient and angry, yelling at him and her beloved grandson. She became suspicious of a physical therapist walking out in the middle of a visit. She found it difficult to understand newspaper articles. She lost her empathy, bringing her husband and her daughter to tears with her coldness and anger. While driving, she nearly hit other cars on the highway, drifting past her lane. She drove over a high curb to get out of a parking lot because she couldn't figure out how to fit through the exit. She blamed whoever constructed such a lousy exit. She noticed her family members talking about her, but she could not grasp that they were concerned. Instead, it fed her paranoia. She was certain she was fine. It was everyone else who was acting crazy. Okay? And this talk is, I'm dedicating to my grandpa Virgil, who he spent the last few years of his life in a facility, struggling with dementia. Died alone in the nursing home right after COVID hit. He didn't hardly know his family. He would continually tell stories of things that never happened, like that when he was serving in World War II, even though he was not born in World War II. And he would get extremely agitated at the drop of a hat. Okay. And again, there's so many people who struggle with this and are the caretakers for people just like this. Okay. And this is not how we were made to spend the last years of our life. Okay. Many people think this is that Alzheimer's disease or neurodegenerative diseases is due to bad luck and bad genes, but the thing is, we know better. Okay. We know that that there are things, yes, that correlate it, but there are things that you can do through your lifestyle. And so tonight you're going to learn that the things that cause dementia, the brain busters, how to prevent these and even reverse them for somebody who has damage to their brain. And we're going to talk about the genes that are linked to that, how you can turn them off, on and off through your lifestyle. Okay. Again, because this is not the way we were meant to spend the last years of our life. Okay. And so we have identified the genes that are associated with Alzheimer's disease risk. Okay? There's one that's called ApoE4, and there's these genes, and the more copies of these genes that you have, the higher risk of neurodegenerative disease that you have. So, for example, you look at the chart here, is just one, if you have no copies, you maybe have a 9% risk of developing Alzheimer's disease lifetime. Okay. If you have one copy, it goes up to 30%. If you have more than 2 copies, it now goes up above 50%. Okay. And like I said, fortunately we know better is because there's a whole field of genetics called epigenetics that have shown over and over again that we can turn these on and off. Okay, through our lifestyle. Family history matters, but it matters because what you also inherit from your family is their lifestyle. Okay, because the fact is not everyone who has the ApoE4 gene gets Alzheimer's disease, right? Okay, and not everyone who gets Alzheimer's disease has the ApoE4 gene. So we know that's not the determining factor. There's a lot of things that you can do to change that. Okay, and like I said, this is the beauty of epigenetics, is that your lifestyle trumps your genes. Okay, the good news in all of this, even though that the numbers keep going up, is who's in charge of your lifestyle?
Yes.
You. Okay, and for some of you, that might have been a bad thing. Okay, but the good news is you can change that too. You can start today and say, you know what? I am the one who needs to be in charge of this, not somebody else. And you know, this is a short list of things that you can do to start reducing your risk and offset the risk that might come with those genes. So, for example, regular to moderate to vigorous physical activity has been shown to decrease risk of Alzheimer's 28 to 45%. It's almost cut in half just by exercising regularly. Okay, a low inflammation whole food diet can significantly reduce it. So for ApoE4 carriers, okay, up to 30%, 35%. Okay, poor sleep increases your risk by 30 to 70%, while protecting deep sleep can help to decrease that. Okay, so obviously making sure we're getting enough sleep. These are all things that you can do. And I mean, there's all these other things, you know, for example, taking sleep is, how many people do you know that, you know, they get sick, maybe they aren't feeling good, maybe they have bad allergies, and they take a Benadryl to help them sleep, okay? Or worse, they give it to their kids to help them sleep, okay? Last year, this was all over the news that people who use things like Benadryl regularly have a 54% higher likelihood of developing dementia, okay? A huge increase. That's not bad genes, right? What they do is they actually block certain receptors in your brain, and they weaken the brain signals over time. And the thing is, there's no drug that doesn't have side effects. So many of these drugs affect the brain, but that's just one of the, it's not really a side effect, it's a co-effect. That's what the drug is meant to do, is to disrupt these things. And unfortunately, it can increase the risk drastically, okay? And like I said, instead of waiting for the shoe to drop, there are ways to look into your future and say, hey, am I at risk of these things? Is this thing something that I need to be worried about, okay? So there's 2 tests that you can do midlife that are strongly correlated with Alzheimer's disease risk, okay? One is walking pace, okay? Simple, right? Okay. The faster you walk, the lower your likelihood of Alzheimer's disease or neurodegenerative disease, okay? So one of the things you can do is just get out and walk and try to work on increasing your walking pace, and that's going to lower your risk. Okay, the other is hand grip strength. Okay, when we had our how many of you came to the Younger Tomorrow makeover? Awesome, yes. So glad you guys came to that. Is before that, how many of you did the test that Esteban had? He was checking your grip strength. How many of you did that test here in the office? Okay. Well, if you haven't done it yet, on your next visit, I'll have Esteban bring it back, and you can work on checking your grip strength. And he's our grip master. You should see his forearms are like this. Okay. I don't know what he's storing in there, but it's obviously dangerous. So, yeah, grip strength is the other one. So the weaker your grip strength, the more higher risk you have. Okay. You know, for example, you take this chart here. This is where women, this is specifically for women, where they should be for grip strength based on their age, okay? If you're down here below the 50s, you are in the lowest 25% and you have the highest likelihood. And the reason grip strength and walking, the reason they're so good predictors, such good predictors of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, is because weaker muscle strength is correlated with the smaller brain volumes, okay? So the weaker your muscles, the smaller your brain's volume is, and specifically the hippocampus, that's your memory center, that's critical for your body, for your brain to be able to remember things, and the smaller that gets, the higher risk of neurodegenerative disease, okay? So what does this all tell us about living the 5 essentials of max living? Is which one should we be doing? Oxygen and exercise. Okay. So if your number is lower than that, you need to start working on grip strength. It's holding heavy things, holding them for a long time. Farmers carries are good things. Doing max T3 classes. That little bit when we get started, that's a small sample of what we do in our max T3 classes. Okay. So get plugged in. Esteban's leading those, and he has them lined up. I think our next one's going to be in May. So check those out. They'll be on the calendar when we have those coming up. Okay? So what I want to start with is the top 5 brain busters and things that you got to watch out for. Biggest triggers of brain decline and brain shrinking. Okay? So number 1 is our brain shrinking diet. That's what we have here in the United States. Okay? Your plate, your pantry, your grocery store, or the grocery cart, it all needs to look different than what everybody else is doing. Because if you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're going to get what everybody else gets, and that's neurodegenerative disease. Okay, cholesterol drugs. We demonize cholesterol, or modern medicine has demonized cholesterol, and I'm going to show you that you actually need cholesterol to keep your brain healthy. Glyphosate. Okay, how many of you know what glyphosate is? Roundup. Okay, Roundup, the pesticide. Okay, this actually might be one of the biggest brain busters of them all. I'm going to show you again how to avoid that. Increased stress and cortisol. Too much stress shrinks your brain. We're talking about that. And then sleep apnea. Everyone, used to take their laptop out when they went through TSA. Now they got to get their CPAP out when there's people traveling. So more people than ever are dealing with this stuff. My mom, God bless her, is one of those people. She can't go without it. So the question you need to ask is, why is that happening? Okay, I'm going to show you. Okay, so what is a brain shrinking diet? Okay, when you leave here tonight, go drive directly to the nearest grocery store. And on the way to the grocery store, I want you to pay attention to, all the fast food chains and restaurants that you drive by, the gas stations, and think of all the food that you might get in these places. And then get out of your car, go in this grocery store, and start walking down the aisles, especially in the middle of the store. Okay, that's a brain shrinking diet. Okay, heavy in processed foods, chemicals, chips, breads, sugars, grains, all these things that trigger insulin release in your body, that spike your inflammation in your body, and all those things accelerate your aging. And those are some of the big brain shrinkers that you're going to run into. Okay, the thing that you need to understand is food companies are not in the business of making you healthy. Okay, they are in business to make food that is addictive, that makes you fat, that makes you want to eat more and more of their food, so they can keep bumping up their profits. Okay, thankfully, we finally got some common sense in our government, in the FDA, that we've now flipped the food pyramid over. Thank God, RFK Jr., I don't care what you have to say about him. If that's the only thing that changes, that is a huge win for the things that we have going on in this country, because that's been stuff that I've been preaching for years of how to eat differently, okay? But is to think the old food pyramid, the base of the pyramid was the very thing that makes people the most sick, the grains and the breads, okay? So what should we make up the base of our food pyramid, the base of our diet, okay? Well, number one, it needs to be fats and proteins, okay? And then stacked on top of that is veggies, and stacked on top of that is some fruit, and then maybe on top of that, if your body is healthy enough to tolerate it, maybe a little bit of grains that you can have, okay? Because the fat and the protein, they regulate your insulin levels, and they stop your brain from shrinking, and they actually feed your brain, okay? And I'll know that I've done my job is that when your fridge and your pantry looks like my fridge and food pantry, okay? Or that you can go into Natural Grocers and King Supers, and that your grocery cart doesn't look like it's somebody who's on the path to diabetes, okay? And the thing is we've got so much information out there, people don't know where to turn, okay? My message has not changed. There's been things that we've tweaked, but these are the same things I've been preaching for the last 15 years in my office. This is the way we need to eat: more food by God, less food by man, okay? We want to make it easy with the Max Living plans. Superman's here. So here's a simple trick to help you keep you on track when you go to the grocery store, okay? Is stay on the outside aisles. Except for the bakery section, I want you to close your eyes when you go through that. Don't even look at it. There's nothing good in there. Just stay away from it. But the big X you see there, that's the middle of your grocery store. That's the aisles. Stay away from those. That's where all the junk is. The Dr. Peppers and the donuts and the Doritos. Stay around the edges. Okay, that's where the nourishing food is. Okay. And in Max Living, we have two different diets that we talk about, and these are the brain building diets, the brain expanding diets, okay? There's two of them. We have the Max Living Core Plan and the Max Living Advanced Plan, okay? So for those of you who are note takers, I'm going to give a brief synopsis of the Advanced Plan, okay? The Advanced Plan is simple. You are eliminating all breads, grains, pastas, sugars, even most fruits, except for Granny Smith apples, grapefruit, berries, and a little bit of lemon and lime. Okay? If you say, well, what about this fruit? If it's not those 5 fruits, it is not on the Advanced Plan. Okay? Number 2 is you're focusing on get as much healthy fat as you can, and number 3 is you're eating the whole natural. Grass-fed organic beef, free-range chicken, and wild-caught fish. Okay, you're getting quality, natural, organic proteins. Okay, if you follow those 3 rules, you will be 90% on the advanced plan. Okay, and things that would show that you need the advanced plan is you have risk of neurodegenerative disease. Okay, you have heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You are diabetic. You have autoimmune conditions. You are overweight or obese. You have poor energy or fatigue. Any and all of those things mean that you need to be on the advanced plan for some period to get your body regulated. Okay. The only difference between the core plan and the advanced plan is on the core plan, you can have fruit for dessert, and then you can have ancient type grains, things like quinoa, buckthorn, sorghum, those type of grains. Okay. And if you do splurge, again, I'm not going to ask anybody to do perfect, but if you do splurge, you at least want to have organic, non-GMO grains, okay? Just because the amount of stuff that gets put on those things, okay? And the core plan is if you're already healthy and you want to stay that way, okay? That's where I live. That's where me and my family stay, is in the core plan, for the most part, okay? So that leads me into the top 5 brain boosters, okay? The things that are going to feed your brain as part of those diets. So number 1 is omega-3 fatty acids, okay? Particularly DHA and EPA, okay? Those are both beneficial for brain health. They actually will reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as they are anti-inflammatory, okay? So if you deal with things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, those omegas will help to fight those things as well, okay? Avocados, great source of healthy fats, support brain health, reduce dementia risk, and they're high in a ton of different vitamins. Antioxidants, they've got vitamins A, C, and E. A and C are both potent for your immune system. They've got folate, they've got B6, they've got copper, and these nutrients work in concert with your body to improve blood flow to the brain. So it's also going to help feed your brain, to protect your brain cells. Okay. Next one is ashwagandha, and to go along with that is rhodiola, because those help lower cortisol, not cholesterol. Help lower cortisol. They modulate the hypothalamus pituitary axis, okay, and they act as adaptogens, and they help to improve your body's stress response. Okay, so when you get stressed out, it will help your body to fight those things a lot better. Okay, it's also going to help boost your brain and your mental performance, so you can remember things easier and fight chronic stress and burnout. Okay,
what is that?
What is that?
What's
Ashwagandha.
ashwagandha? It's a certain compound. You can take it in the supplement form.
Oh.
Okay. For example, like we have it in our foundational 3 in the cellular health and longevity, because it helps your cells and helps that response to, again, all the stressors. Okay, it's like a herb.
Doc, doesn't that help with sleep too?
Sleep, yep. Of course, it's going to help with cortisol. It helps with sexual function as well, for both men and women. Again, because you're clearing out all the cortisol. So
it just comes in a shell form?
you can take it in supplement form, yeah. So there's a lot of different supplements. Like I said, we put it in with a bunch of other stuff to make sure you get maximum effect from a whole bunch of different things together. Okay. Berries is the next one. Berries are high in antioxidants. People always hear me say that, and most people don't know what that means. So what it means is they're compounds that float around your bloodstream, and they pick up what are called free radicals, which are chemicals that cause damage to the cells, to your brain, and they pick these up and they carry them and they neutralize them so they can't cause damage. Okay. Berries are anti-inflammatory. They improve blood flow. They actually enhance neuron signaling. Neurons are your brain cells. It enhances signaling between the brain cells. That's something that I learned as I was going through this. So it's going to help improve all your cells talking to each other. Okay, and that's crucial if you didn't know that. Okay, and then it's going to help improve metabolic function. It's going to improve insulin sensitivity. It's going to help reduce diabetes. And it's gonna help your fasting. When you're fasting, it's gonna help your insulin levels lower faster so that your body can lose weight, okay?
And which berries were they?
Berries.
Any berries?
Any berries.
Oh, really?
Strawberries, blueberries,
Well, so
blackberries,
how can we
raspberries.
go wrong like eating watermelon and cantaloupe and stuff like that? Is that really
Because those are
bad
higher
for
in
us?
sugar.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's the problem. They're higher in sugar. Okay, and you know, at a certain point, you know, bananas especially, is the amount of sugar in the banana doesn't outweigh the amount of vitamins in there. So we got to balance that. Is you want foods that have lots of vitamins, but you also don't want the inflammation that the sugar causes. Okay, and the other thing is berries are going to help your gut-brain axis. We always talk about your gut is your second brain. So it's going to play a big part in your brain health. They're high in fiber, which is going to help support healthy gut bacteria. Okay, and then lastly, nuts. They're packed with those same antioxidants, vitamin E, flavonoids, polyphenols, which are again chemicals that are going to help fight inflammation in the brain. Okay, so these are all things that are going to help reduce the amount of damage that the chemicals that we get exposed to every day that they cause in our body. Okay. How many of you know that vitamin D is good for your immune system? Okay. Did you also know that's vital for brain function? Okay. And those of you who've been around long enough, you've heard me talk at length, verbatim, about vitamin D. Okay. But one study shows that if you're deficient in vitamin D, you're more likely to develop dementia. Okay. Another study shows that increased calcium in the brain is linked to depression, again, which is a sign of brain dysfunction. So vitamin D helps to correct that. Okay? People typically have lower vitamin D levels in the winter because you're not getting what? Sun. Okay? Well, what else do people deal with a lot more in the winter? Depression. Seasonal affective disorder, where you get more depressed in the winter. Well, this is part of it because you're not getting enough vitamin D. Okay? How many of you older ladies have been told you need to, that you need to be on calcium because of your bones? Okay? But how many of you haven't been told that you need to be on vitamin D3 because that's actually more important for your bones than the calcium is, because your calcium is very heavily regulated. And the problem we find is that a lot of times when they find plaquing and dementia and Alzheimer's, is they actually find higher rates of calcium in there. Okay? So if you supplement calcium, you could actually be doing more damage to your brain. So the bottom line is your vitamin D levels in your blood need to be at least between 60 to 80. I like mine between 60 to 100. Okay. Some doctors will say above 80 is too high. I don't. Okay, I say up to 80s or up to 100 is the range you want to be in.
So then if you have enough D that you're taking with the calcium, it counteracts it and keeps it from
Correct.
causing problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will help regulate the calcium a lot better. Okay. And even if the last time you got your blood work levels, they told you it was quote unquote normal, okay, which was probably means it was between 30 and 40, maybe above 45, which in my book is still too low, okay? So it wasn't optimal. It might have been normal according to conventional medicine, but it wasn't optimal. And what we're looking for is optimal, okay?
So should you
So-
be taking 1,000 a day?
I take 5,000 during the summer when I'm outside. I take 10,000 during the winter, every day,
A vitamin D?
of vitamin D3, okay? That's what I do, okay? And again, there's a great test to know if you need to be supplementing with vitamin D. So what you do is you take 2 fingers, like this. Everybody do 2 fingers, okay? Wiggle them a little bit, like this, okay? And then take them and put them right below your jaw and feel your neck. You guys feel that? That's called a pulse. If you have one of those, you should be supplementing vitamin D. Okay? So, next one we're talking about is cholesterol. Okay? Obviously, like I said, we've demonized cholesterol, but I want you to know your body and your brain cannot function without cholesterol. Okay? It is the raw material for your hormones are made up of cholesterol. Your vitamin D is made up from cholesterol. So if you're out in the sun and you don't have enough cholesterol in your body, you're not going to make vitamin D the way you're supposed to. Okay, and most of the cells in your body have a protective membrane around them. That's all made of cholesterol. Okay, so demonizing cholesterol is like blaming bricks for a very poor design of a building, okay? It's not the problem, all right? The real problem is the inflammation in ultra-processed food, okay? So newsflash, HDL and LDL are not cholesterol. They are high-density and low-density lipoproteins, okay? They are carriers of cholesterol, okay, which is, cholesterol is like a waxy substance that your body uses to repair tissues in your body, okay? The LDL carries cholesterol to damaged tissue. HDL transports the cholesterol back to the liver to be processed and recycled, okay? They say LDL is bad because it increases cholesterol in the bloodstream. Well, of course it's increasing that because your body is trying to heal itself, okay? So when you have those free radicals that I was talking about, and they cause damage to the lining of your blood vessels, the endothelial cells in your blood vessels, okay? LDL is doing what it's supposed to do and carrying cholesterol to act as a protective barrier so that that damage doesn't keep spreading through, and then your blood vessels break open and you have internal bleeding, and then you bleed out because you've got all this damage running around your body, okay? And so by lowering that, you're actually interfering with the body healing itself, okay? The LDL is a Band-Aid for what should be a temporary problem, but we're continually bombarding our bodies with all these toxins and chemicals. So it's smart that the body does that, okay? And the thing is just a few weeks ago, I read an article saying that they were revamping the cholesterol guidelines to say is they need to be looking at it earlier. They need to look at cholesterol earlier, okay? And and like for younger generations, potentially even in kids. And what does that mean? That we're going to have way more kids on cholesterol medication, okay? Other things, newsflash that you didn't know, about this we've known since the 90s. In the New England Journal of Medicine, there was a study that came out back in '99 that showed that more people die of heart disease with low cholesterol than people with high cholesterol, okay? So when you lower your cholesterol, you're actually increasing your risk of dying of heart disease because you are interfering with your body to heal itself, okay? And what they also don't tell you is when they measure HDL and LDL, is they look at the broad category. They don't look at the fact that there are subcategories of HDL, some of which are bad, okay? So you can have your HDL higher than, like above the normal range and in what they would call a good category, okay? But a lot of those HDL might be the ones that are harmful. I actually had this tested years ago, and mine was high, and so I had to go through a whole protocol to be able to lower mine, okay? And it might be high because of that, meaning that you might have higher risk for heart disease, okay? As well as there are subcategories of LDL cholesterol that are good for you. So when you lower those subcategories of LDL, you actually are interfering with your body to be able to heal itself, okay? So you get in the picture here, guys, okay? And what does this all have to do with brain health? Is because 60% of your brain is made of cholesterol, okay? So if you lower your cholesterol, you're killing your brain. So that's not something that we really want to be doing, okay? So, and the dangers of cholesterol drugs, we've known side effects. They're very well known, but they're the first line of defense when it comes to, oh, you have high cholesterol. Well, let's get you on these drugs. Let's get you on statins. Okay, how many of you have been told that you need to be on a cholesterol medication? Okay, a lot of hands go up. Okay, that you need to be on a statin. Okay, how many times did they talk to you about changing your diet, eating more healthy fats, or exercising more, or supplementing? Even though the side effects are clear of these drugs, muscle pain, okay, because your cells, your nerves are made up of cholesterol, okay, or as well as there's higher risks of dementia and Alzheimer's with people who are on statins, okay, and this goes back to what I was talking about as far as there's no drug that doesn't have co-effects, okay, because the big picture here is this is how God made our bodies. There's certain processes that we have to make sure our bodies are healthy, okay? And we have an amazing innate intelligence that keeps our body functioning at all times. That takes us from 2 cells to 70 trillion cells by the time we're born. 50,000 cells die every day, and they get replaced. There's trillions of chemical reactions happening on a continual basis every second. Okay, you are a healing machine from the day you're born to the day you die, even before you were born to the day you die. Okay, this is life. Okay, and like I said, this is the pathway, but I want you to see this pathway. So this is where statins interfere. They interfere with HMG-CoA reductase. Okay, which is just taking all these different chemicals down, and so you go down here, and this is how you end up with cholesterol. Okay. But because you're cutting it off here, what you're also doing is you're cutting off these other things, like the glycol isoprenylated proteins, and then this one is coenzyme Q10. Any of you ever heard of CoQ10? Okay. Anybody know what CoQ10 is important for? Your heart. Okay. It is vital for your heart. Okay. So by cutting off your cholesterol, you're actually, again, creating more heart disease because you're taking out the thing that's actually supposed to be there helping your heart. Okay?
Question.
So, yes.
Yeah, how come they, because that is so important, how come they don't have it? They don't have it out in the market? The Q10,
The CoQ10,
Yeah.
you can find it all
Oh,
over the
you
place.
oh, you can?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can find it in pretty much any vitamin store. You can go to the natural, or go to like King Supers and they have it there. So yeah, you can find it. You know, and
Doctors don't tell you about.
yeah, they don't talk about it for you to be on there. If you have been on a statin or are on a statin, you absolutely need to be taking CoQ10, 100%. Okay, and again, these are not side effects; these are the co-effects. You know, again, this goes back to 2 of our essentials: diet and exercise. At the very beginning of this, okay. And so, you know, even things like the good thing is like PQQ. That's another that's CoQ10's big brother. You know, getting those things in as much as you can. Okay. And so is the thing that even if doctors do tell you, hey, you know, you need to change your diet and to be able to impact your cholesterol. The things they tell you to do is to avoid what? Fats, saturated fats. They tell you to avoid these things. But again, they've gotten a bad rap, and I actually teach my patients to eat saturated fats. Eat as much healthy fats as you can, and because they're just that important. Okay. So a couple examples is you know, the doctors. Let's say this. Obviously, I'm one of those doctors who say, hey, let's do other things. But this is not just the wacko chiropractors out there. This is other doctors. Jack Wolfson, he's the paleocardiologist. He's a natural cardiologist, one of the top natural cardiologists in the world. George Mann, who he was a medical doctor on the Framingham study, which is where they used to determine cholesterol and heart disease. Okay, he was the senior investigator. And at the end of the study, he came out and was very vocal that the findings that they came out with, saying cholesterol caused heart disease, was wrong and it was flawed. But he was shunned, he was basically pushed out, and they did it without him even doing anything, okay? Without listening to his input on that. So it's a myth, okay? Stephen Sinatra is another cardiologist, sums it up well. The reason more cardiologists haven't focused on the evils of sugar and simple carbs rather than cholesterol is because there's no patent on blood sugar. You can patent cholesterol drugs, you can't patent sugar. You're cutting it out. I'm saddened to admit that most doctors are indoctrinated or educated by the pharmaceutical industry. There's no money in talking about the studies that show a relationship between excess sugar consumption and heart disease, okay? So we gotta start looking at things differently, okay? So if cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease, what is? It's inflammation, okay? And like I said earlier, those omegas, EPA, DHA, okay? Those are 2 great anti-inflammatories that are going to help reduce the cause of that damage. Most people get way too many omega-6 fatty acids. They're not getting enough. They're getting seed oils and grains, which are the linoleic acid is one of the big ones. Those are the omega-6s and 9s. Those are the ones that will make your body sick. Okay, those are the bad fats. Okay, and so it's essential that we take omega-3s to make sure that we're getting quality sources of fat That's gonna reduce the risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, as well as heart disease, okay? And some studies is, showing, they did study over 8,000 adults on statin with elevated triglycerides and controlled LDL.
Bless you.
Were given EPA, and they had a significantly lower risk of major cardiovascular events. So just by taking EPA, it lowered their heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death than those in a placebo, okay? It wasn't about lowering cholesterol, it was about reducing inflammation, okay? Provided strong clinical evidence that omega-3s are good for you. Some of you might have seen, though, studies out there showing, oh, omega-3 doesn't work, there's no point in taking it, it's a waste of your money. How they form those studies is what they'll do is they'll take a very small amount of the omega-3, not enough to make a difference, and they'll study that and they'll say, oh, it doesn't make a difference, okay? Versus actually studying it in the therapeutic levels. That's where with like our supplements, we make sure it's in a therapeutic level that your body will actually have the benefit. Same thing with vitamin D, that actually will improve those levels, okay? Another one looked at 2,000 patients with coronary artery disease. We're giving supplementary omega-3s, significant reduction in triglycerides, small reduction in total cholesterol, which again, if your body is regulated, that's okay if your cholesterol is lower, just because of the fact that your body's actually healthy. It's when we artificially lower it, that's when we see the problem, okay? And so it shows definitely is gonna help your triglycerides and lowering those too, okay? And the thing about supplements is the most expensive supplement is you're never gonna take is the one that doesn't work, okay? Again, it's not enough dose. This is a comparison. So this is Pure Path Omega. This is what we have in our office, the omega-3, and this is a Costco Omega. And I want you to look at this is, so you've got your EPA and DHA, okay? You get 300 milligrams of that total, okay? Ours, you're getting 570 milligrams alone of EPA, another 430 milligrams of DHA, okay? So again, there's a maximum effect of that. And I actually tested my omega levels a while ago. We do like advanced testing in our office. I tested mine, and my balance was actually way out of balance because I was taking way too much EPA and I wasn't getting enough DHA. So I had to switch over to doing the potent DHAs. Okay, so those things you can actually test. But there's 900 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids compared to 300. Okay, that's 3 times more bang for your buck. Okay. Glyphosate, sold as a weed killer, but it really acts like a slow toxin. Okay, it's just slowly poisoning us, soaking in the soil. You would be hard pressed to find even some organic items that don't have glyphosate in them, because it is just leached into everything. Okay, and it's harmless, so it's not a big deal. Well, Home Depot removed it from the shelves, but it's still sprayed on almost all of your crops if it's conventional, if it's not organic, okay? And the thing is back in 2018, the first lawsuits against Roundup happened, showing that it caused cancer in humans, okay? And they've paid out billions in lawsuits, in money, to victims of this stuff. And when even the World Health Organization lists it as a probable carcinogen, you know it's bad, okay? If the World Health Organization says it's bad, it's probably bad, it's really bad, okay? So, and this is, and I want you to look at these graphs here, okay? When you look at these, you'll start to question what's really happening in our society and in our environment right now, okay? So, this green line on this graph this is age-adjusted deaths from dementia, okay? This green line is the trajectory it was on since the 1970s, all the way through the mid-2000 teens, okay? This green line is where it should have stayed, okay? Well, you'll notice in 1991, when glyphosate was introduced, that's this red line here. That's how much glyphosate was applied, okay? And the higher it went, you'll see these yellow, those are the deaths due to senile dementia. See a pattern there, okay? the thing is, this isn't isolated to just dementia, okay? This red line here is the exact same line over here, okay? This is compared to children between the ages of 6 and 21 who have been diagnosed with autism, okay? Which is brain dysfunction, okay? See a correlation there? You know, it's sad is because, you know, it used to be 1 in 10,000. Yes, we have some better diagnoses, but when it's down now in 1 in 46, I've seen it as low as like 1 in 20 something in California. You know, that's not better diagnosis, okay?
Well, and it's a lot shorter time span we have too on this one.
Yep.
And it's a lot faster.
Yeah, but I mean, as you can see, this is right
Yeah.
here. It's the
Yeah.
same pattern,
It's huge,
okay?
yeah.
So we look at these things and we see, okay, there's some dysfunction there. Higher levels of glyphosate in the urine were associated with worse cognitive memory performance in older adults. So the more glyphosate you have in your urine, the worse your memory performance, okay? The other thing is before any symptoms of Alzheimer's have shown themselves, in this study in mice, they exposed them to glyphosate chronically, and they show increases of neuroinflammation, amyloid beta plaques, which is part of Alzheimer's disease, and phosphorylated tau proteins, all hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. Even months after they stopped giving them glyphosate, exposing them to it, those levels were still way higher, okay? So it's a slow burn. And again, this is before any sign of neurodegenerative disease, okay? So buying organic is a way to say, no, I choose to be outside of a system that's normalized chemicals that are killing us, okay? When you're voting with your dollars to say, I choose to go organic, okay? Even better than that is finding regenerative farms that go beyond just, you know, doing the bare minimum of avoiding pesticides, but they actually will make our land better, improve soil and biodiversity, okay? So organic is a great way. So like we just bought a whole cow last summer, and it was from a regenerative farm. It's called Rooted Vision Valley Farms. They're gonna give me an ownership stake here with how many people I've been sending to them, so. I have no affiliation with them, by the way. So, but that's where we got our meat, and great stuff, okay? So start voting with your dollars. Go to the environmental working group. Start looking at the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Dirty Dozen are foods that you absolutely, fruits and vegetables that you absolutely need to buy organic because of the amount of pesticides and stuff that are sprayed on, okay? Next, we're gonna talk about stress. It is an unavoidable consequence of life. We are all gonna deal with stress. That's normal and healthy. That's why we have a fight or flight response, so that when we can respond to an acute threat, you know, that if a bear is chasing us, we can fight it off or run, okay? So examples of that: noise, crowding, like we're in here tonight, yeah. Isolation, hunger, danger, infections. But the thing is those stresses can be false stresses. They can be imagined stresses, okay? Your brain is really, really bad at deciphering what's a real stress and what's not, okay? So under most circumstances, the acute threat passes and we move on, okay? But the problem is those threats, they be subconscious even, and they're happening continually in our modern life, and so we're ongoingly stressed, okay? They're not short-lived, they're chronic. You know, you get up and you're in traffic every day. You get on social media and you see all the garbage that's on there. You know, you go to work and it's very pressure. Even our kids nowadays is through sports and activities. It's so competitive that they're under a ton of pressure. Even loneliness can cause these things, okay? And those all shrink your brain. So ways that we can combat that is be mindful. Okay, mindfulness is something we all need to work on. I strive to work on it, but I suck at it. Just so you know. But I don't have to be good at it to tell you it's good for you. Okay? So it's not being lost of thoughts of like worries of the future or regrets. Okay, if you're worried about those problems, okay, then you're always running from that bear in the woods. It's just always there, it's chasing you, and your body feels that. Okay. And so some mindfulness practices you can add into your day. Take a walk, no phone, no music, no podcast, just listening to nature, go somewhere quiet and peaceful in nature, and start paying attention to what's around you, okay? Watch the sunset. All those things are great to control those runaway thoughts that continue stressing us, okay? I probably have been guilty of this in my life, is inhaling your food while watching TV or looking at your phone or talking, and not actually like sitting there thinking about what you're doing, what you're eating, and so we power our food down. We forget to like count your bites and, you know, think about how that's impacting your body, okay? The textures, be here, be present in that moment, okay? So things that you can do, again, to help that. And then, you know, third is take your vitamin G, your gratitude, God and gratitude, okay? Write 3 things down that you're thankful for in the morning. Get up, spend 3 minutes, write one thing down, focus on it for a minute, write another thing down, focus on a minute. Just be grateful for all that we're blessed with, because we all have so much to be grateful for, okay? And lastly, give yourself a break, okay? How many of you talk to yourself in a way that if anybody else talked to you that way, you'd be like, I'm not gonna be around you, right? Yeah, I mean, the self-criticism is like we beat ourselves up, okay? Give yourself a break, man. You're not that bad, okay? And so is less criticism, more compassion. It's a great place to start for yourself, as well as others, okay? Like I said, is the ways that the stress all affects you is it takes a toll on your adrenal glands. Every time you're in a stressful state, it triggers your adrenal glands, okay? Every time you see something that, you know, gets your blood pressure up on Facebook, it affects your adrenal glands, okay? Every time your phone rings or beeps for a text message, you have a tiny bit of a spike of adrenal hormones. So put the phones away, put them somewhere where you're not gonna hear them, because it's urgent now. I need to look at it now. I'm terrible at this. It's like my phone rings and I gotta get it to it right now. No, leave it alone. Okay. My wife and I were thinking about just taking a day every week where we just put the phones away. We do not look at them, don't touch them at all. Okay. How many can relate? You know, this is where we're going with this. Okay. But those adrenal glands, one of the big ones is cortisol. Okay? And cortisol spikes your insulin. Insulin creates inflammation in your body, specifically in your brain as well. And so you wear those adrenal glands out, and so you have to actually repair them and help them recover. And like I said earlier, one of the ways that you can do that is ashwagandha and the rhodiola. B vitamins are great. They're also really good for energy. Cordyceps mushrooms are great ones. And so if you have any of the symptoms on the last slide, these are all things that you can take, okay? Another way we have them, like I said, we have them bundled so we get maximum effect of that. You know, adrenal balance is one of the ways that we'll do is somebody who's under chronic stress. So we'll actually have them take the adrenal balance because it helps to regulate their adrenal hormones and their adrenal glands, okay? And like I said, we also have the cellular health and longevity, which has a lot of the stuff in the adrenal balance, but also a bunch of other things that are going to help with your mitochondria and anti-inflammatory. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about sleep apnea. Okay. Like I said, the whole thing with TSA is people taking those things out. But one of the big ones is obstructive sleep apnea, and that's where basically your throat closes. And this has exploded partly due to the fact that we have so much obesity and so many people who are overweight. Okay, because that's one of the things is that all that extra weight starts to close up the throat. Okay, we projected about 35% increase by 2050, which would mean 76 million adults would be affected by sleep apnea due to aging and again, like I said, obesity. Okay, and this is super important because your sleep is your healing time. Okay, so if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. Okay, and so that's super important to get back into that. Okay, and you know it keeps you up out of that deep sleep, which is the most restorative sleep. It does all the house cleaning specifically for your brain. Okay, so you have the lymphatic systems. You've heard of lymphatic system, which is getting rid of like the dead tissue of your cells when you have injury. Your lymph system is the system that clears your brain, okay? And you have cerebrospinal fluid is one of the things that does that. It actually washes your brain and gets rid of all those dead cells, okay? And that lymphatic system is up to 10 times more active during sleep than while you're awake, okay? That's why sleep is such an important part of restoring, and why people who don't sleep start to go a little cuckoo, okay? Is because they start seeing things because their brain is not removing those things where they're supposed to, okay? And it removes the amyloid beta protein, which is, that's again, one's associated with Alzheimer's, and the tau protein, okay? And so it gets us up out of that. And so it's more common than the central sleep apnea, which is, that's more of a, somewhat of a neurological, but it's 20% or more of adults have this going on. And especially loud snorers. If you're a loud snorer, you're more than likely to have some of this going on, okay? But the thing is, you have to ask why. So in normal breathing during sleep, air can flow through your nose, through your mouth. In obstructive sleep apnea, it doesn't. The soft palate loses its tone, it gets weak, and it gets kind of flabby, and then it starts blocking your airway, especially if you lay on your back, it starts closing up your airway, okay? And so if it's a cause of loss of tone while you're sleeping, doesn't it make sense to find the cause of that and why that would potentially be happening, instead of just sleeping like with a Darth Vader mask all the time?
Yeah.
Okay? So question you're asking is, well, why do they start sagging? Why do they start blocking the airway? And the muscles maintain their tone through one thing, just like every other muscle. They maintain their tone through the system that controls every function in your body, okay? Specifically the cranial nerves, okay, which is the upper cervical spine, right at the top of your spine. These are the nerves that go back up to your head. They control your eyes, your ears, your face, okay? They even go down into your shoulder. And if there's no interference on those nerves, those muscles can remain taut. They can keep their tone. Any of you heard of trigeminal neuralgia? It's damage on the trigeminal nerve, which goes to the 3 regions of your face, okay? Super painful, okay? But these are the same nerves that go out and control your soft palate and keeping that tone in there, okay? And the thing is, you know, we see people be able to reverse these things, you know, and get rid of their CPAP machines. Not everybody, but it's, you know, one of the ways that we do that is we start looking at root causes. You know, so we always go back to what's the root cause of these things. And one of the places that people don't often look is at the nerve system, okay? Because the nerve system controls every single function in your body. All of your hearts are beating right now. Your brains are functioning. That's your nerve system controlling your nerve system, okay? Your lungs are breathing. If you had a cut on your arm, that cut's gonna heal. But the thing is the only way to know if you've got damage on these nerves is to take an x-ray and actually see if there's misalignment, because the nerve system is so important. It's protected by what? Your spine, your bones, okay? And so this is one of the important pieces of this puzzle is for your brain, is back in the 80s, Roger Sperry won a Nobel Prize for brain research. He said that 90% of stimulation and nutrition of the brain is generated by proper motion of your spine, okay? We all know that your brain needs fuel like glucose and fat, but that's not what keeps it working from a neurological perspective. Yes, that helps some of the energy, but it's the motion that allows those things to get to the brain the way they're supposed to. And that all comes from the upper cervical spine, okay? Everybody take your fingers again. This isn't a trick. Just feel this bone right here, back of your skull. Some of you have like a big bump right there, right? That's the occiput. Okay, right underneath of that is the atlas. That's your C1, it's top bone in your spine. And then right below that is C2. You'll feel a little bigger bump down below that, okay? Those 3 make up your suboccipitals, okay? And those are critical for proper cranial nerve function, okay? When somebody has headaches, which is a sign of cranial nerve dysfunction or allergies. That's the first place we look at, is that's those nerves, okay? But the same thing could cause a dizziness or ringing the ears. It could cause sinus issues. It could cause ear infections in kids, okay? And so all those things go back and affect that, okay? 90% of that. So that upper cervical misalignment is so critical to overall health, okay? And so the problem with it is upper cervical misalignment not just impacts the nerves, but it impacts cerebrospinal fluid flow, okay? So that the pumping mechanism that gets the cerebrospinal fluid from your spine down your tailbone all the way up into your brain to wash it, it doesn't get pumped up the spine the way it's supposed to, or it gets stuck right at the top, and then it can't actually enter into your skull and your brain to be able to wash it, and so your brain starts getting sick, and it gets that beta amyloid buildup, okay? The gold standard of that is doing a spinal tap, and they actually check the cerebrospinal fluid. You don't want to go through that though, that does not feel good, okay? But this is why chiropractic has such a beneficial stimulus to it, is because you can actually take a picture of your spine, an x-ray, and see the misalignment and figure out where that misalignment is happening and what you can do to work on fixing it, okay? So that's the gold standard, and I want you guys to see this. So this is cerebrospinal fluid before, oops, play. Okay, this is cerebrospinal fluid before, it's this black stuff, okay? I want you to watch it, pumping up, okay? This is after an adjustment. You see how much darker those black lines get and how much further up they go, okay? That's the power of an adjustment. It unlocks that cerebrospinal fluid so that it flows up in the brain and washes the whole brain, okay? Again, this is how critical getting adjusted is, okay? Because if you have dysfunction, if you have a straight neck, or you have curvature from the front, it's literally choking your spinal cord. The spinal canal shrinks, okay? And if you know anything about a garden hose, what happens when you put a kink in the garden hose? Water doesn't flow. Same thing with your cerebrospinal fluid, okay? So that's what happens. Those of you guys get adjusted regularly, raise your hand if you get adjusted regularly, okay? That's what happens when you're getting adjusted. When I'm using that arthrostim on your neck, it's improving that. It's like an oil change for your brain, okay? And so if you've never had that done, or you've never been adjusted, that's something that you probably need to look at doing, is because again, you want your brain to be healthy, so you gotta give it everything it needs, including proper nerve supply and function to your whole body, okay? So if you've never been checked, that's one of the things you do, is you can stop and see Esteban on your way out, and he will get you scheduled for that. And we do an evaluation, full workup. Normally, x-rays, all the testing can run hundreds of dollars, okay? I pride myself in making sure that we can be affordable for people. So regularly in our office, it's only $130 for a full workup, orthopedic testing, exam, x-rays, okay? But tonight, if you get signed up, Esteban will do that, $40, covers all the testing, including the x-rays, lets us know where the problems are at. We will let you know if there's problems. If you don't need adjusted, great, okay? But being able to say is, hey, these are what the issues are, so that you're not like an ostrich burying your head in the sand, not knowing how things are functioning. But I can tell you is you don't need an x-ray to know when you're dealing with neck pain and headaches and back pain and numbness and tingling in your arms and hands and thyroid dysfunction and digestive issues, because those are all signs of a nerve system that's not functioning properly, okay? So ultimately getting down to the root cause. So before you make any changes, that's first and foremost, is you gotta do that, okay? So those are your steps to success, to healing your brain, okay? Sorry I went a little bit over, but I wanna end with this though, is if tonight brought you any value whatsoever, okay? All the people you know, every single person has a brain, hopefully. Unless it's your husband, for you wives. Unless it's your husband, they sometimes don't have brains, because that's my wife. If they've got a brain, if they've got a nerve system, and and they wanna be healthy, then these are all important things for them to know as well, okay? And on the 27th, we're gonna be doing a community dinner, which is you and whoever you bring with you, gonna come out to dinner. I'm buying, you don't have to pay a dime. And I'm gonna talk about some of the same stuff I talked about tonight and give a abridged version, so that the people who you say they should have been here, they should have learned these things, that they can have a chance to hear this information, okay? And we have invites that you can take them, you can hand them to whoever you wanna bring with you, and just let us know by the 24th who you're bringing with you. And again, you get to come as well, even if you're already a patient, okay? So thank you guys for coming. If you need resources, we have the Brain Octane bundle. It's the adrenal balance, it's the omega-3 and the vitamin D. That's on sale for 20%, okay? Everything else is 15% if you need resources. We have limited supplies of the Brain Octane bundle. So if you want to get it, you can go see Esteban. But they're back on the corner of the desk. There are product order forms. Fill that out with what you want, and then bring it up to Esteban, and he'll get you checked out. Okay? So God bless you guys. Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed.